There are not many things more quintessentially Australian than the man from Snowy River, as Banjo Patterson reminds us in the opening words of his immortal poem. There was movement at the station, for the word had passed around that the colt from old regret had got away and had joined the wild bush horses. He was worth £1,000, so all the cracks had gathered to the fray. The wild bush horses are under threat not only from culling from helicopters in New South Wales, but worse, from the total liquidation of the breed by the Albanese government minister, Tanya Plibersek. Our next guest is Peter Cochrane, who'll tell us why he believes this is completely unjustified. Our next subject is the Minns government resuming the aerial culling of brumbies and the notification from the federal government, from Ms. Plibersek, threatening what seems to be the complete liquidation of the brumbies. The person we're speaking today is well versed in all of this. Peter Cochrane is a Vietnam veteran. He was a former farmer, former MP. He has a horse trekking business in the Snowy, and he's an expert on the brumbies. Peter, what's your view of the resumption of the aerial culling? What's your view in relation to the Plibersek threat?
David, thanks for showing an interest in what is absolute carnage in the Kosciuszko National Park. As we speak, helicopters are flying down into the southern end of the Kosciuszko National Park on the Victorian border in the area of Injigubbi, and they're right along that border there. And what's going on is this aerial culling of the Snowy Mountains brumby, an iconic brumby that we showed to the whole world at the opening of the 2000 Olympics, that we proudly showcased Australia as horsemen and horsewomen, and a proud cultural history of the Snowy Mountains. Well, at this very moment, the Minns government, with the endorsement of our local member Steve Wan, are now down there shooting the brumbies from the air with helicopters. Now, in the past few months, what they've done is they've shot a number of horses, a considerable number of horses, probably up to 400, in the northern end of the Kosciuszko National Park, from the air and from the ground. They've left the carcasses lying on the ground in the waterways, which are now polluting the Tantangro Dam catchment, which in turn is the catchment, the water supply at Cooma and Canberra. There's a blue-green algae bloom in the dam above Tantangro Dam and in the spillway underneath, which flows down the river and eventually pump into the Googong Dam with their water. This is an environmental scandal, David, which is not being addressed by any of the authorities. The EPA has not been seen anywhere. And, it's quite evident to me, riding about up there 5 days a week in the Kosciuszko National Park, that I know firsthand two things. One is the rotting carcasses from the previous operations up there are polluting the waterways. No EPA, no sign of the Kosciuszko National Parks Wildlife Service policing the operations of the shooters who are contracted. It is an absolute scandal and nobody wants to know about it. But the left-wing media that we've got in this country, and the worst, of course, of the ABC, do not want to address these issues. And they're all about the environment, all about pollution and the like, and they're doing absolutely nothing about it at all. So none of the authorities are acting. They're doing about this. The RSPCA are an absolute disgrace. The last shooting operation they had there took 7 bullets to kill each horse, an average of 7 bullets per. As you mentioned on the bet, I know about these things. I know about the firearms, and I know about the consequences of attempting to shoot moving targets from a moving platform. It's almost impossible to get an accurate shot. The kill shot burst up. So this is going on as we speak down on the Victorian border now. Nobody's doing anything about it. Now, local member Steve Wan is absolutely useless, voiceless, and he's supporting the operation. This fellow, Wan, is supporting what's going on down there at the moment, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Peter,
In addition to that, there's not only the pollution.
how many brumbies are there in the park?
Well, the count that's been undertaken under the Keynes method, which is the method used by the National Parks and Wildlife Service to justify this carnage, and this is a massacre. This is not small scale stuff. Their Keynes method came up with a figure of something around $20,000. It changes by the week, by the way, depending on who they're talking to. But they claim there's 20,000 horses there, and the legislation that went through both houses of New South Wales Parliament provides for retention areas where certain numbers of horses can be kept in those retention areas, and the minimum number of horses to be kept for cultural purposes and also the tourist industry, which I'm involved in, and others, it was 3,000. Now, I suspect, and most others up here, the locals suspect, that there is in fact less than 3,000 there now. So they're up there in the helicopters at huge cost to the taxpayer, slaughtering these animals, leaving them lay on the ground, sometimes in close proximity of camping areas. This happened in the first instance. They shot horses almost immediately through the fence to camping area. They leave them rot in the waterways. It's just not good enough, David. There has to be an accountability here for the minister and also Menz, the Premier. But more than any of them, Steve Warren, the local member, has not raised a hand to prevent the cruelty that's going on up in that park. Now, if he's endorsing this sort of cruelty, he deserves to be kicked out on his ear. And I know there's plenty of people about here at the moment that are thinking seriously about taking him on the next election.
It seems to be unusually cruel, this method of culling. If you say you need 7 shots to kill an animal, they must be leaving large numbers of wounded animals and animals, mothers with their young colts beside them. All sorts of terrible things must be happening.
Well, the lessons were learned with Minister Davis in 2020 when a similar carnage took place in Guy Fawkes National Park up in Cox Harbour. And a similar incident, there was over 600 horses were shot. And mares were left with foals, triple foals. Mares were shot and the foals are left orphaned. This is now going on in the Kosciuszko National Park, despite the fact that Bob Davis, when he was minister, to his credit, ruled out aerial culling for all time. And the ALP have apparently weakened in the face of the leaders in the National Parks and Wildlife Service who are running the show. They're all to themselves. And what has occurred now is you've got a situation where you've got a diminishing number of horses, some of which have been DNA'd, most of which have been DNA'd by volunteers. We've traced the cultural history of these horses back to settlement. Many of the horses carried the same bloodlines that were used in the First World War and the light horse and the whalers. So the emotional attachment to these horses, these brumbies, David, you can't describe. This has had an immense emotional effect on the people surrounding Kosciuszko National Park. I've had people on the phone in tears. I mean, believe that humanity can allow this to happen without somebody questioning it. Where's the accountability? Where's the justification for breaching the legislation that went through both houses of Parliament? When this is anarchy, this is the sort of thing that goes on in Nazi Germany prior to the Second World War. I mean, how on earth can we allow this to happen where you've got legislation democratically goes through the Parliament? It provides a baseline of management for the horses, that they have a cultural significance, that there was 3,000 to remain in the park, that there was a management plan to be set up. All of these things are laid out in the legislation have been totally ignored by the Menz government. And Steve Warren, to his detriment forever, is allowed this to happen and not raise the hand. It's an absolute disgrace.
Is anybody taking this up in the Legislative Council?
It has been taken up by the Nationals, and to the credit of the National representative up there, particularly Bronnie Towell and Wes Fang, I mean, they have been resolute in backing us, and to their credit, they've raised all of these issues that we're talking about now in the upper house inquiry. There is a Senate inquiry going on in the federal Parliament, in both cases, the Labor Party have stacked the figures, stacked the numbers in these inquiries. So that not only have they stacked the numbers of the participants as far as the elected members concerned, but they've stacked the numbers as far as the participants in contributing to the evidence in support of the Brumbies. So what they've done is, people like myself, where I applied to go to those inquiries, have been totally rejected. I was rejected as the chairman of the management committee, and there would be few people who would have as much exposure to these horses on a daily basis as I do. And I
Wouldn't
know
they- wouldn't they allow you to-
by name, in fact.
Peter, wouldn't they allow you to give evidence?
No, I mean, you would expect that the most vocal person, or one of the most vocal people in this whole debate, would be asked to go before the inquiry to
Yes.
some evidence if they're genuine in wanting to get, credible evidence before them. And that's what's happened. I mean, they brought people in who, with all good intentions, have given the best evidence they can. But you know as well as I do that there are skills involved in making presentations to a committee such as that.
Yes.
You have to be aware of the political machinations that are going on within the committee and be able to read the eyes of the people.
Yes.
Most of it's been done online. Most of it's been done on screen like we are now. And you don't get a feel for the participants who are involved.
Exactly. And just finally, what's this from Tanya Plibersek, this threat of, she's talking about the liquidation of a whole breed, as I read it. What's this all about?
Well, the article that appeared in the Sydney Morning Herald gave an inkling as to what she's up to, and I can't understand how the federal government gets involved in this, apart from the fact they're trying to relieve some of the pressure off the state government, who are now totally disgraced by what's going on. And if Tanya Plibersek would take the time to come up and talk to some of the people who understand these issues and actually have a look at what's going on in the mountains. These horses occupy less than 15% of the entire park. They are not in alpine areas as often claimed. They are not a threat to the Crombie Troll. They are not a threat to these endangered species, which in the main occupy the alpine areas, and there are no horses up there. I mean, this is the sort of evidence that's going before these committees, which is totally discredited. The locals are able to give accurate and relevant evidence to it, and they're prepared to be accountable for backing up their statements. Whereas the science, which is now before the Parliament, both at the state and federal level, is flawed on every scale, deliberately politically flawed. It's the political intervention of the science is just extraordinary. It's breathtaking. And so people are losing faith in all of the science that's been presented now because we know it's totally inaccurate.
Peter, thank you for your time today, but thank you especially for this wonderful campaign that you're doing, which is so Australian and so important for such a wonderful symbol of this country. Keep up the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for time.